Howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So, we're going to do a live stream tonight. I'm feeling a little under the weather, so don't really feel like recording and feel like those of you who would tune in for this probably don't care if I cough or sneeze a little bit. Aside from that, at the beginning of the year, I set the goal of doing one of these per month. This is the last day in March, and I don't believe I've done one at all. So here we are. Normally, when we do one of these, we have we have some kind of benefit that we're doing. We're raising money for something. We don't actually have that going on this time. This is really just for fun. We also do one every 100,000 subscribers, and although we're not there yet, I probably won't get the time to do one right when we hit it. So here we are, setting this up so I can scan this on my phone. All right. Okay. So let's see what we have going on here. How does Ukraine win and when? Win is a fluid thing right now. We don't know what that really means. Victory conditions change, and what they plan on right now, they're winning. They are well beyond the period that anybody expected them to last, which means Russia is having to counter their moves rather than the other way around. They now have the initiative. So there we go. Let's see. Thank you, Anna from LA. Always appreciate a live. Do you feel like news of Ukraine has won? I don't know. I don't. I think Western media played into it because they thought it was going to be a dynamic event that was really quick, and there's that saying, all wars are popular for the first 30 days, and now we're hitting that point where they're realizing it's going to be a little bit more protracted. It's going to last a lot longer. There's going to be issues as things move forward, and they may not want to cover every up and down that goes along with it. So that probably has a lot to do with it. And then U.S. media has to kind of gear up for the midterms, So let's see. Thank you, Anthony. Thanks for all the insight. Congratulations on channel growth. Yeah, it's been a wild ride. Thank you, Harley Contrarian. Thank you, War Baby, the beard of knowledge. Thank you, Patrick Hoyle. Thank you, Patrick Hoyle. Let's see. Does all the money we're giving to Ukraine come from the defense budget? I don't know where you're at, but probably not. Normally that's appropriated in addition to. Jennifer Edwards, give the horses some treats for me. Will do. So that's actually probably where some of where this is going to go, is to offsetting. Over on the other channel, we're doing the series on how to build community gardens, and some of this will probably go to like paying for the greenhouses and stuff that people have been asking about. Thank you, Binyam Mahari. Love your work. Keep it up. Thank you. Thank you, Rick Urbanowski. Let's see. Pet the floofs for me. Yeah. Yeah. Last night we posted a video of the horses in the barn because we had a storm. And people asked so much about one of the horses having Cushing's that I think we're going to have her go get tested, even though we're all fairly certain she doesn't. Let's see. Thank you, Pat Spencer. Could NATO defeat Russia without U.S. support? Yes. Yeah. Conventionally, absolutely. If there's one thing that this showed, it's that Russia has severe logistical issues, the kind that NATO countries love to exploit. So the McEwens, what made you change from contractor to activist? Yeah, that is a long, long, long story. There's nothing that convinces you that the current system is wrong more than being the tool of its implementation. Lexington Brython, thank you. Don't have a lot of cash. Sorry. Question. I'm an apartment tenant. Is it possible for me to grow food for roommates, partners, neighbors? It depends on your the rules in your apartment complex. We are going to show you how to do it. Whether or not your apartment allows you to do it is another story. We actually plan on building kind of a fake building and showing people how to grow stuff vertically on the side of it. So thank you, Icy Saracen. If Ukraine wins with all that U.S. weaponry, do you think the country will fall into civil war and become a breeding ground for terrorists like the Middle East or cartel gangs like in Latin America? There's a lot of equipment floating around, and after every war anywhere in the world, where that equipment goes is in question. So it very well, I see a lot of it landing in hands that we don't necessarily want it in. But I don't, the groups in Ukraine that are opposed to the status quo there, they don't have the strength that a lot of Western media is kind of implying. They don't have the numbers. Now, that doesn't mean anything as far as low intensity attacks and stuff like that. They could do that and try to rally support. But after a war, there's normally a giant surge of patriotism. If they win, it's probably going to dampen their hopes. But those groups have allies outside of Ukraine that they could ship that stuff to. So there is definitely a worry there. And it's a worry that not a lot of people are paying attention to now, but they're going to wish they did later. Thank you, Stacy Carroll. Thank you, Thomas Bernecki. Thanks for keeping us all relatively sane these last few years. Yeah, it's been a wild ride. Keep up the good work on both channels, education and entertained. I tried. Thank you, Emerson Lamb. Thank you, Ziggy Zaggy. Let's see. Thank you, Jan DeGray. Oh. Greetings from Poland. Stay safe. You stay safe. You're a lot closer to problems than I am. So, thank you, Huntus Farmer. Has this shown the main battle tank is obsolete versus drones like the Bayraktar? I don't know that it's obsolete. It has to be employed in a very different way than it was during World War II, and that's where Russia is definitely having an issue. They're using tactics that are obsolete and have been obsolete for 50 years. But it's definitely not the front line device that it used to be. Thank you, Natalie Bruner. You once said that historically the closest we have been to nuclear war the public doesn't know. What are some examples? I don't want to tell you right now because I'm filming a video on that as soon as my throat clears up. You will get your answer though, but there are times in world history where it was literally one guy. It was one guy just being like, no, I'm not going to do that. That stopped things from going sideways in a bad way. Thank you, Miss J. Rez. Thank you, Testy Trekkie. What's the over-under on Ukraine not just pushing the Russians back, but retaking Crimea and Donbass? That's far out there. That's a long way to make a prediction. I will say it's not impossible. It isn't impossible with the way things are going. I don't see that as a likely development, but it definitely could be. It also depends a lot on what happens internally in Russia and how well Western countries keep the economic pressure up. Russia is having to do some wild stuff just to give the ruble value. So thank you, Riley Hoffman. Thank you, Lulu Girl. Thank you, Yaroslav Mezritsky. Thank you. Jumps through with that little thing. Thank you, Alberto Rolandi. How can Russia afford this war? For how long can they pay for all the costs running this special operations, especially with the sanctions? They can't afford this. That's the thing. This is incredibly expensive. They don't have the money for it. Everything they're doing right now is on borrowed time. They had a fund for wars, but it was pretty successfully countered. That's why you see Russia right now demanding payment for natural resources in rubles, because they've got to keep the value of the ruble up, or this is over. Thank you, Victor Gutierrez. The way you explain things, my colleagues and I have thoughtful Tuesdays where we discuss DEI, and I'm sharing your channel with them next week. Thanks for keeping it real. Thank you. Thank you, Mary Dakma. Thank you for all your support for Ukrainians. I'm originally from Melitopol. Thank you, Timothy Foster. Thank you, Coffee Coder. Is advice for building community networks similar for New England as it is in the South? You have different things you have to overcome. You know, down here, people are very reluctant to do anything that involves them joining a group. People in the South are notoriously hyper individualistic. That's not a concern that I've seen as much up north. So, but the general strategies and tactics are the same. Let's see. Thank you, Larry Freeman. Thank you, Ziggy Zaggy. Thank you. Get the pitchforks. Money for stuff. Thank you, Rick Travel Stayed. Thank you for insight on current events. Thank you, Natalie Bruner. Thank you. Thank you, Jim Gallant. Thank you. Hello, 1814. Why doesn't anyone keep standard fact sheets on the major issues with sources, keep them updated and easily found? Because it's hard, because it's dynamic and stuff changes quickly. That's the real reason. It's hard for us to keep stuff like that updated. Thank you, Timothy Foster. Thank you, Not Found. Thank you, John E. McCormick. Greetings from the Philippines. I'm a retired U.S. veteran, now live here with a Filipino wife and family. I enjoy your insights and watch each upload. Thank you. Thank you, Joshua Brown. Thank you, Michael Jansen. Thank you, LM1231. Thank you, Lady Sparkle. I love some of the names here. Irrational. Do you think that the current conflict will accelerate the developments of robotic weapons platforms? Possibly, especially certain kinds. I think we're going to see a lot more unmanned aircraft. Thank you, Craig Jacobs. What are your thoughts on Russia announcing 134,500 conscripts today? If you go back 10 days ago, I put out a video talking about contracts and conscripts and reinforcements. The normal number that Russia conscripts right now is 134,000, something like that. This is normal. I know that Western media is like making a huge deal about it, but this is very, very normal. It's in line with what they do every single year, twice a year, once in the spring, once in the fall. So I don't see that as a huge development. Thank you, Deborah J. Ferguson. Thank you, Sharon Rowe. Thank you, Ungato. Russian soldiers are suffering from radiation poisoning from Chernobyl. Ghost buses have traveled to Belarus to be hospitalized. So I have a lot of questions about that. Just being in the area shouldn't have done that. Now, there are reports that they dug in, and I haven't been able to confirm that. If they dug in, they exerted themselves, and they hit stuff that was really hot under the surface and breathed it in, that tracks. But I think we may be dealing more with people who are getting sick. That I don't know that it's acute radiation sickness at this point. It's very possible, but I think it has a lot to do with whether or not we can confirm that they dug in. Let's see. Thank you, Icy Saracen. You think Putin will get overthrown like Soviet Premier Khrushchev? Do you think Putin was going after a successor? I think he could be. I don't know. He's definitely acting as though he's worried about it. He's put a lot of people who have the capability to do it on house arrest. So he's concerned about it, which is normally a pretty good sign to everybody else that maybe it's a possibility. Thank you, Zach Lyle. Greetings and congratulations from Australia. Thank you. Thank you, Tig Starbuck. Not about Ukraine. Sorry, you once said you think trans people are the next big scapegoats for politicians. How much worse could it get? And what can trans people do? Came out last February. Yeah, we're starting to see it with a lot of the legislation that's passing. The easy answer is move to somewhere that's friendly, but I know that's not a real answer because a lot of people don't have that ability. It's hard to answer because in some areas my standard answer would be to be very visible and very vocal. However, there are some areas where that may not be a good idea because that could lead to you being targeted. There needs to be a strong push to cultivate allies to speak on your behalf in those areas, those that aren't at risk of being targeted because they've been othered. Thank you, Missylvania. Thank you for redefining Rule 303 and giving us something to think about. Y'all actually did that. That was y'all. I talked about it and explained how it got used in the contracting world. And basically, this audience was like, you know what? That's ours now. We're taking it. And I definitely amplified that decision because I think it's a cool move. Thank you, Mia Boo. Are you familiar with the Resistance Committee in Ukraine? I am, and I believe that everybody should take a look into that. There's a lot of focus on different non-state actors that are helping the Ukrainian resistance. Most times they're focusing on the bad ones. There are some good ones out there. Thank you, Aaron Brecka. Thank you, Tiger Eyes. Thank you, Joe Shalom. What are the chances some famous Russians use Putin as a weekend and parties version of their boss? I don't know. He's upsetting a lot of very powerful people over there right now. So I wouldn't put that out of the realm of possibility. Thank you, Rachel H. Boswell. Thanks for building knowledge along with those greenhouses. We need both. Yeah, we do. Thank you, Jess Me. Saw you were, and I wanted to jump on really quick to say thank you that my boyfriend and I appreciate all that you do. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Walt Anderson. If you were Joe Biden, what would you tell everyone in your next press conference? Man, that's hard. I would start outlining, if I was Joe Biden, if I was the Democratic Party in general, I would start outlining everything that the Republican Party has stopped, and start building attack ads for the midterms because they're going to need them. Thank you, Elements 114. Seeing as this may be a catalyst to global paradigm shift regarding renewable nuclear energy, do you think there will be a significant shift because of the war? I hope so. I really do. This has shown that we've been beyond the type of energy that we've been using. And there's a whole lot of other options out there. And I'm hoping that as people realize that these supplies aren't as stable as people believe they are, that maybe it will encourage a faster transition. Thank you, Harvey Rabbit. Do you think the West will keep the sanctions on Russia until they're completely out of Ukraine, including Crimea? I don't know. there's a limit to how much the West can stand, just like there's a limit to how much Russia can stand. I would hope they do. I would hope that it becomes the norm, and I would hope that Russia would back off quickly, because we have to remember that while this is occurring and it's effective, it's also hurting the average Russian over there that has nothing to do with any of this. And I would like that to stop as soon as possible. Thank you, Timothy Ball. Thank you, Alan Kennedy. Thank you, Lisa Jenkins. Should we really want the Eastern Territories to be Ukrainian, given that they don't want to be? I would like to see like a very free election. I would like to see a referendum, but it's also not my country. So if it was up to me, yeah, there would be the local populace would decide. The problem is I don't think they've really been given that chance fairly. Let's see. Thank you, Lisa Jenkins. Thank you, TJ Mull. Just heard Putin drafted. Yeah. Okay. That's normal. I think that's only 4,000 more than what is normally conscripted at this time every year. Every year they bring in about 260,000, 130,000 in the spring, 130,000 in the fall. That's not a really big development. It's just happening at a time that there's a war on. So people are like, oh, the two must be related, but they may not be. Thank you, Kip Stomp. Wow. I'm fortunate to have watched your channel for years. I genuinely appreciate for all that you do. Thank you. Thank you, Ask Bama Girl. Congratulations on 700K. Not yet, but we're almost there, and that's what this is for. It's kind of a tradition at this point. Thank you, Proud Suburban Dad. Love your foreign policy takes. Thank you. Thank you, This Old Stonard. Thank you, Testy Trekkie. Want to wish you all a good day from down under and hope that you all are safe and salty. Thank you, Ashley's Roadside Rescue. Hello from Nashville. Thank you, Ronald Cross. Thank you, Cat C on International Trans Day Visibility. Thank you for being an ally. Yeah, that's, you know, y'all gave me the platform. I have to use it to do what I can. Thank you. Thank you, Rick. Your recent video on You Don't Want a War Here, how much of it is about leftists? Have you changed opinion on conflict revolution over time? To me, the violent option is always the wrong one. I mean, if there is any alternative, that's the one that should be pursued. Like I know there is that view. There's a whole bunch of people who are like, you know, we'll fix it after the revolution. How? And then they don't have an answer. And that makes me really nervous, because most times when you're talking about something like that, it really just ends up being a scheme to put new people in power, and nothing really changes for the average person. Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Rockby. Thank you, Thump Dizzle. Happy to contribute. Thank you. Thank you, the Goof 171. Do you have any relation to AA? I don't. I find your Rule 303 fits with our 12th step. I never thought about that. But yeah, that tracks. That makes sense. Thank you, Sandra Cook. Thank you, Astro Blurf. Is there a historical precedent for radical systemic change being achieved without violent revolution? I don't like the idea that it's inevitable. The problem is when you look at it in hindsight, it doesn't look like radical systemic change. It looks like an incremental approach. I would suggest that the end to segregation was radical systemic change. But most people don't view it that way in hindsight. And there's also that idea of where that line is. When does it actually become a violent thing, and when is it just normal politics, but these few violent acts happened? You know, there's a lot of gray area in this question. You don't like the idea that it's inevitable. Yeah, I wish it would be faster too on a whole lot of topics. Just the good news is that historically speaking, we win. It just takes way too long. Thank you, Lorelei. Thank you, Susan. Can you say something about Putin just stealing hundreds of planes? Why is there not more outcry? I'm assuming this is about the lease thing. I think everybody's trying to figure out what to do about that. It's not. I don't know how long Russia will be able to run those without assistance from outside. So, thank you, the almighty Sanchez. What is your opinion on Vosh? I don't normally do opinions on other people on YouTube. That's a world, a sphere of YouTube I try not to get involved in. So let's see. Rex Downham, much appreciated. Thank you, Jeff Minarchic. Sincerely appreciate your input, perspective, context. Please keep up the great work. Yeah, I will be here as long as y'all are. I have no plans on stopping. Brutus Magnuson sending a super chat because I hope you do more streams. Yeah, the goal is to do one a month. That's what I set out to do this year. That has not been happening, but we're trying. And I got this one in on the last day of March. So I guess a 1 out of 3 isn't bad. Also, how can a civilian U.S. Air Force reject prepare for an emergency situation? The same way anybody else can. Find your skill sets, play into those, and get what you need to do it, and then just be situationally aware. Thank you, Curtis Zeidelhack. Truly a patriotic inspiration. Thank you. Thank you, DGP Holy Hand Grenade. Would Putin's handpicked successor even be safe at this point? Oh no, if he's removed by force, I think they're going to put somebody else in. I think that they will choose their own person to replace him. Thank you, Jillian Eris. I know this is naive, but what are the chances Russia's nukes haven't been maintained? That's a possibility at this point. It's not something I would count on, though. But there's definitely concerns now. I mean, that is something that a few years ago, nobody would have even questioned. Of course they were, because nobody's that bad. But now here we are. And I mean, we're trying to find out whether or not their troops dug into radioactive soil. So, I mean, there's not much that we wouldn't say there's no way they would do that anymore. Thank you, Laura Staples. Thank you, Scott McCrae. Thank you, Umbra Emilitos. Have you seen Ryan Macbeth's video sharing I have not. I have not, but that wouldn't surprise me. I have seen other stuff on that topic. Okay. Random thoughtism. Thank you. Matthew Dunham. Thank you. Oh, Matthew Dunham. Thank you. Let's see. Hey, Bo, keep up the great work. You were the few people in existence who helps me keep my sanity in this bizarre and insane world. Thank you. Thank you, doginess. Why hasn't Russia used more of their professional forces? Conscripts don't seem to be doing too well. I think they're keeping some in reserve, not many, but I think they're keeping some in reserve in case there's a fight with NATO. They have been using a lot of their professional forces. The problem is the idea was to insert them with conscripts so they would make the conscripts better. It turns out the conscripts just made them worse, created mistakes that put them in bad situations. Thank you, TJ Mull. There you go again, answering my question even before I ask. Thanks for the tech vid earlier. Best life ahead all day. Thank you. Thank you, Dare Wunner. Thank you, Hilda Flores. Thank you, Amanda B. Thank you, Calliope F. Thank you, JC Mason. I live in AB Canada. We have a boom bust economy. Lots of older conservatives here support the war because it drives up the cost of our oil. Jeez. A 3-bedroom home is $500K. What hope do my kids have? The hope is that we move to a more sustainable system, because what you're describing isn't, sadly, it's not actually a rarity. Thank you, Legion. Thank you, Glenn McGee. Thank you, Quai Gamer. Thank you, DL. We gonna see your garden trees anytime video for growing a garden inside in an apartment. Okay, yeah, we can add that to our list. We've actually filmed the raised beds, building the basic raised beds, and planting a bunch of fruit trees over the last couple of weeks. It'll all be put together and put out. There's going to be a series of these, and I think you just added to it because we don't have anything on like arrow gardening or anything like that that you would do indoors, which might be a good idea. Thank you, Reverend Ed Trevors. And if y'all are not familiar with Reverend Ed, definitely check out his channel. Greetings from Halifax. God's blessings upon you and yours always. Thank you. RJ, LOLATTE1. I don't know. Thoughts on changing federal minimum wage to something driven by cost of living instead of the blanket number 15. Yeah, the number 15 is already outdated. If you actually look at the information, that's already, by the time that gets enacted, it's already going to be obsolete. And that's why you're going to have, you'll start having politicians come around to it. They're going to start saying, yeah, we'll do that now, because it's already lower than it really should be. Because things have changed that much since that slogan got coined. The new move by that group is it's no longer fight for 15, it's fight for 15 and a union. And that's actually now on their shirts. In fact, the one I wore, I think in the video that went out this morning, that's what the bottom of it says. They've moved from a single issue thing into a union organizing group. Thank you, Jacqueline Healy. Thank you, Barbara Smith. Thank you, Wendy Brooks. Thank you, Antonio Miller. Any clue on if the Russian performance in Ukraine will help reduce the use spending on national defense budget? Because, that's, you would think, right? But probably not. Probably not. To the contrary, what you'll see is, well, we don't actually have this technology yet that we should have had and that would have been really useful in Ukraine. So let's develop it now. You would think that it would reduce the budget, but it's probably not going to. Thank you, Anthony Lusco. Can you do a video on what an ideal new country might be like? Politics, laws, practices. I actually have a video that's titled "Let's Talk About the World I Want," which is pretty similar in thought, and it gives a brief overview. Now, keep in mind that's just a general tone; those don't necessarily reflect all of my beliefs, but it trying to give like a frame of reference. Let's see. Thank you, Icy Saracen. Following American YouTuber is currently living in Kharkiv, Ukraine, and he says the Western perception of Russian military is wrong and they might win. Might win yeah, that's a possibility. As far as the perception, at this point, we're not talking about perception. We're talking about their performance and what has actually occurred. There is no way to shape this and not acknowledge the fact that a country that was viewed as number 2 or number 3 in the world couldn't handle Ukraine. There is no way to get around that fact. And we're not even talking about the occupation side of it, which a lot of powerful countries have issues with that. We're talking about the conventional fight. That's the idea that the Russian military was severely overestimated. That's not perception anymore. It's fact. Thank you, John E. McCormick. Your wall background looks like a Grateful Dead tie-dye t-shirt. Yeah, I love this. This is one of my favorite ones. Thank you, E.F. Ricka. I'm not convinced that Putin is rational, nor are his advisors doing him any service. I think he's still generally rational, but I think he's been fed a lot of bad information to the point where he can't make rational decisions because his information is that far from reality. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Shane Sanders. Thank you, Melanie Smith. Let's see, Shane, can you make a video on Russian belief that a nuclear war is winnable? Yeah, I mean, I can do a video about that, but to be clear, I don't think Russia actually believes that. I think that's perception. That's the perception they're trying to foster through propaganda to make them seem more willing to use it than they are. Melanie Smith, thank you. Thank you for all your content, especially the DEI messaging. It really has a positive impact. Thank you. Can we talk about Putin's troll farms? That might be a good video soon. Thank you, Rona B. If Russia's not willing to use nuclear weapons against Ukraine, doesn't that indicate Russia wouldn't use them against the U.S. and NATO? Russia's doctrine says they won't use them unless they are facing existential threat. Now, they haven't stuck to their doctrine so far, but most countries don't want to use them because they know there's going to be a response. Thank you, Jason Nichols. Do you worry that Putin is moving his forces away from Kyiv because he plans to escalate Kim? No, not really. I mean, it's a possibility, but I don't think that that's how. I think that's one of those things that he knows would elicit a response that he doesn't want to deal with. But there's no way to be sure about that. That is a risk. It is a danger. Let's see. Thank you, Roswin. Great to see you tonight, sir. Thank you for so much well-researched information. Thank you. Shannon McConnell, what's on your shirt today? It just says I'm fine. And then down in a part of it, you can't see it. Actually, there's a giant wound on the shirt. And it's just, we had a really bad storm, tornadoes, stuff like that last night. And I don't really feel well. I'm exhausted, but I really, really wanted to get this live stream out. Thank you, Master Failure. How do you feel about eliminating marriage as a government-managed process? No more tax benefits and no more rules on marriage rights. Civil laws will still apply for disputes. I mean, in summary, yeah. When it comes to stuff that involves personal interactions between consenting adults, I don't really believe the government should be involved in it. Other than to make sure that people can do what they want. So I don't have an issue with that. I mean, it's a move that is probably not in the future, but it wouldn't bother me as long as people's rights were protected. It's not really the government's business. Thank you, Pooh Picker Upper. Thank you, Tim LB. I watch you most days. You're a useful and sensible source. Thank you. Thank you, Hope Morissette. Thank you, Obvious Captain. What would you do with $1 million? start a school that teaches people how to affect change in their local community. Basically a force multiplier school for activists. I mean, not that I've thought about it or anything, and yeah, that's what I would do. Thank you, Jacob. Oh no, everything just jumped around on my screen. Give me a second to find where I was. Yeah, that's actually my long-term goal. Is to get a school like that up and running and funded. Don't know how long it'll take, but there we are. Let's see. Wow, there's a whole lot. I got to speed up answering these questions. Let's see. Wow, way on back there. Okay, here we are. Jacob, do you see the comparison of Nazi Germany and Russia, how a majority of population got indoctrinated into leadership to blame someone else via propaganda? That's every country during wartime. That isn't something that is solely Russian. It's not something that is solely linked to fascism. That's every country pretty much during wartime falls into that. Even countries that aren't really even involved in a war. Thank you, Missy Gale, for Eva. Thanks for your recent post regarding approaching discussions with people in one's life. Peer pressure from dead bigots. Yeah, thank you. It works. I've tried it. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Anthony Lusco. Also, you bring a serious level of intelligence to general populace most people take for granted. You're awesome. On that note, take care of yourself and understand we want you to do well more than anything. Thank you. Thank you, Coos42. After hostilities have ended and Ukraine can Putin even rejoin the world without risking backlash from Russians for the extensive propaganda campaign to mislead them. Yeah. Populists all over the world are very forgiving of their own government. He can, and it wouldn't even be that hard because Russia has a lot of natural resources that the rest of the world wants access to. Thank you, Taiwan. Do you think after the health crisis, Russian stuff, and how China has behaved, companies will start relocating their manufacturing? Yes, and you're already starting to see it a little bit. I do think some manufacturing will come home, but not to the degree that a lot of people want. Remember, a lot of this stuff is automated. Thank you, Amanda Tickenen. Check out Epic Gardening and Maritime Gardening for lots of information on gardening in whatever space you have. There we go. Thank you, Bothered Boy. Thank you for the tips about the fruit trees. Use the family time angle with my mom, and she's now considering a cherry or pear tree as a result. Do cherry trees because I really, really want them and live in Florida where it doesn't really get cold enough. Let's see. Thank you, Ouija13. Thanks for not trying to obscure your local nature sounds. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to try to leave the window open a little bit more. People do like that. Thank you, Andrea Shilkoff. Thank you, Reggie Mitchell. Let's get Bo 1 million subs by the end of the year. Yeah, let's do that. I'm with Reggie. I like that idea. Thank you, Tuba Sun God. Oh. Thanks for level-headed analysis you provide to us. Thank you. Thank you, Seville Nadas. Have you looked much at Vietnam and its current system? Any constructive criticism? None that I can do in the short amount of time I have here. Every country, every system of government is a reflection of the people there. And, one of the big problems we have is trying to say country X should do it the way we should, wherever we are. And that's not always the case. So I don't know. I don't know how valuable my criticism, no matter how constructive I intended it, would really be. Thank you, Autistic Wolf. Do you think that Russia is going to be able to successfully, essentially, force Western Europe to purchase Russian oil using only Russian currency? I don't know. I don't know. It's a bold, like it's a good move from Putin's standpoint to try to force this. I don't know if it'll be successful. Um, that gets into a lot of economic systems and a lot of stuff that I don't understand the way I do conflict. So I can't really make predictions on that. Thank you, Crazy for Flowers. Thank you, David Bernard. Do you think Ukraine can join NATO after the war? Don't know. That's probably going to be a victory condition. That's going to be something that Putin will want to negotiate. I think that there may be an intentional loophole left open, though. Maybe Ukraine doesn't join NATO, but maybe they become allies with Poland, which makes them a de facto NATO member. Thank you, Ben Davis. Thank you, John E. McCormick. Being in the Philippines, what is your take on chances China may soon move on Taiwan? I don't actually think it's likely in the short term. I think they're going to try to do everything economically. That's been their mode for a while, and I think that's what they're going to try to continue because it's working well for them. Thank you, BB Coach JW33. Had Russia's invasion gone as planned, do you believe they would have invaded another country after Ukraine? Yes, but not immediately. Not immediately. I think there would have been some time. Thank you, Shannon McConnell. Thank you, Juliet Road. Thank you, Christine. Nothing serious to say, just happy to be here and contribute. Also, apples or oranges, and why is apples the correct answer? I will say that I have like 8 varieties of apple tree planted, and I don't have a single orange tree. Thank you, Avidus Stormwell. Thank you, Boomer Dragon. Thank you, Element 114. How does the global community give Putin a way out to encourage de-escalation with letting war crime slide like some other not to be named leaders? Russia is a world power, and the odds of the outside forcing a change in leadership that leads to him being turned over for trial is slim. I would not hold your I wouldn't hold your breath looking for accountability on that. I don't actually see it as very likely, as sad as that is. Thank you, Dream Coyote. Do you think the U.S. would benefit more from a disaster relief force? Yes, yes. I'm a longtime proponent of we need to be the world's EMT, not the world's cop. Yes, I absolutely believe that a large portion of our defense budget should be shifted, even if it's going to maintain in the foreign policy sphere. Yes, we need to be the world's EMT far more often than the world's cop. Nobody likes the cops. Everybody loves, medics. It seems like something that should be easy to figure out. Thank you, Trevor Yarish. Always appreciated. Can you describe what the 5th column is? I have a video that just went out about this a while back. It originally started as a term for a bunch of journalists who wanted to open the gates of traditional media. That's where, let me rephrase that, that's where I started using the term. There were a whole bunch of us. The original story goes back to a general trying to get a city to surrender and saying, hey, I've got a column coming from the north, south, east, and west, and a 5th column inside the city ready to open the gates. So we took the term. Everybody else stopped using it years ago, and I kept it. Thank you, Ali Gonzalez Perez. Thank you, Cody Ray. Just discovered you last week. Congrats on 700K. What are your thoughts on Biden's regime change comments and how it's viewed? Yeah, I mean, that was an unnecessary statement, but it also serves to keep Russia off guard, which isn't bad. It keeps them off balance, I should say. I don't think that the statement was intentional intentionally designed to keep them off balance, but it serves that purpose. Thank you, William Swinson. What are the chances of Ukraine joining the EU? Very high. DDD 137. What do you make of Europe rearming? I think it might be good for stability. Yeah, it's Europe rearming. It moves them out of being so reliant on the US for defense. And from Europe's perspective, from 2016 to 2020, yeah, they really couldn't count on it. So it makes sense. Thank you, Melanie Watson. Thank you, Meg Spradlin. Thank you, Bill, for your insight. What's your take on Putin's demand to sell oil at rubles? It's a smart move for him. I would hope the West doesn't do it, but I don't know enough about the economic side of this to kind of predict what's going to happen there. That's outside of my area of expertise. Thank you, Yarn Power. Thank you, Neon. Feel better, Bo. Thanks for the hundreds of down-to-earth and insightful takes over the years. Thank you, Frankie Salamander. Just found your channel a couple weeks ago. Greetings from Canada. Absolutely great channel and knowledge and work. Thank you, Alexis84DE. You're an integral part of my daily life. I look forward to every video. Also, your thoughts on the Will Smith slap. Thank you. And when it comes to that, I normally don't comment on stuff like that because, you know, I'm still from the South. It doesn't. If that had occurred in a bar around here, one guy was talking about another guy's wife and somebody got mad, and it's one of those things where you can look at it and say, hey, that probably wasn't the right move, but also not really surprising that it happened. And I know that a large part of that is just due to where I live and where I grew up. So let's see. Thank you, Aaron P. It's going to offer my 2 cents, but with inflation, $2. Thank you. Nice. I love buns. Thank you, Don McCleary. Girlfriend is a CCRN, and I was a vet tech, so I get how profitable medicine is in this country. How do we make medicine about people instead of profit? Remove the profit motivator. There involves that S word. Thank you. Yes, I have horses and dogs, a ranch, but I'm one of those few people that gets to do my hobby on a daily basis. So thank you, Jian Kuriyama. I know the unthinkable is very unlikely, but I cannot stop thinking about it. It's negatively, did that thing where it jumped around. Hang on 1 second. It's negatively affecting my ability to plan for the future and have hope. How should I distract myself? Don't distract yourself. I mean, just, it's a thing. It's there. It's always been there. It's been there your entire life, more than likely. And it's one of those things you should view like a comet hitting Earth. Sure, it's possible, but you can't wait every day for that comet. You can't wait for the comet every day. Thank you, Addison Seal. Thank you, Daniel D. You had better use this $10 higher. I think I can manage that. Thank you, Bad Pirate Monkey. Ahoy there. Mazel tov on the growth. Let's see. Thank you. Where are we at here? Thank you, Il Paso 12. Italian here. Any thoughts on how the EU is performing with this war? What do you think of more of a united EU to the point of federation? I don't really have a lot of stake in that. Would create, if the EU formed a federal system there, it would make it more powerful. The EU's supplying of weapons has turned out and it shows that their arsenal is up to the task of countering Russia. But I don't have a view on what the EU should do as far as that goes. Thank you, Cub Caribou. Thank you, Kevin Simon. Your well thought out messages are fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, JR. Are you concerned about the weapons being sent to KI ending up in the wrong hands? I am. I talked about this a little bit earlier. It is a concern, but it's always a concern in every conflict. We would hope that there are control measures in place, but history says there probably aren't. Thank you, Eric Vaterlos. How long do you think the sanctions will remain after Russia pulls out? And will we require they pay reparations for rebuilding before the sanctions are lifted? That depends on how well the West is able to counter not having access to Russian resources. And I don't know that will require reparations to Ukraine. I don't see that as likely because I don't think Russia will pay. Thank you, Kay Lorraine. Thank you, Great Gazoo. Thank you. Thank you, Chris Wilcox. Thank you, David Bernard. How to combat Russian psyops and political infiltration in the West. Maybe getting people to understand that they are susceptible to them. I think part of the problem is that a lot of people don't believe that they would fall for a Russian psyop, and so they ignore it. There needs to be a lot of education on this topic and teaching people how to look for sources and how to fact check stuff and how to consume information. Thank you, Kevin Simon. Love the background. Thank you. Thank you, Anthony Luzgo. Can you discuss Indian IT with Big Corp in the U.S. versus buying Russian oil in rupees? What ramifications have? Way outside my scope. That's one of those things. When it comes to foreign policy, I understand the conflict side, and I've got a pretty good grasp on the diplomatic side. When it comes to the day-to-day functioning of the economic side, not my thing. And I don't feel confident in my understanding of it to give takes, especially anything involving a prediction. What I will tell you, when you're talking about politics and political economy, Mexi here on YouTube is really good. That's who I ask when I have questions. Thank you, Trevor Yerish. Seeing all of these super chats looks like maybe you should go live more often, right? Thank you, Dell Childress. Let's see. Thank you, Kay Lorraine. Thank you, Michael Case. Policy: if Russia nukes the U.S. and the EU, do they nuke China also? Otherwise, China owns the world. Yeah, that's one of the things. It's generally assumed that if launches occur, everybody gets drug into it. I don't know that that's true. But if there is a 2,000 warhead exchange, it doesn't matter anyway. The only people that will make it any length of time after the exchange will be those people who live in countries that were nowhere near a nuclear power. Thank you, Kat, the CCCP. Thanks for the info you provide. Thank you. Thank you, James Gong. Hey, Bo, is it possible that we've learned from the Ukrainian experience that all superpower really needs to preserve their sovereignty is nukes, cyber, and propaganda, large militaries, and for invasion? I think that's a simplified take, but not wrong. I think that's grossly oversimplified, but at the same time, it's not incorrect. There's a reason that nuclear powers don't get invaded. Let's see. Thank you, INF187. Thank you, Bart Welch. Wow, thank you. Thank you, Mike99D. Thank you, James Clayton Bowman. Do you see Florida's voters shifting leftward given demographic trends? Eventually, not soon enough to matter in 2024. It's not going to be the demographic side that does it. It would have to be Democrats making a case and getting out there and selling it. Thank you, Taylor Warzone K. What are we raising money for today? More javelins. No set goal this time. Thank you, Stephanie Davis. Hashtag land back. When are you going to start a grassroots political party to take Congress? I don't want to be in politics. Thank you, Yarn Power. Thank you, iTrench. Within the first few hours of Russian invasion, there were reports that Russians were posing as Ukrainians. Is there any concern that this is still continuing? Yes. It's possible, and sure, they may have possibly inserted people into the refugee groups to try to establish long-term intelligence stuff, but it's spy novel stuff mostly, but I mean, it could happen. Thank you, Mike Lambert. Do you own about 500 t-shirts? Yes. Yeah, that's probably about the right number. Thank you, Sally McLaughlin. Yay for the S word. Thank you, David Garrick. You sound a bit under the weather. I am. I definitely am. Road to Freedom. Thank you. Thank you, Karen Man, aka One Man's Hands Crafts. You can't live today by fearing tomorrow. Fact. Thank you, Mr. Yellow Mask. Any advice for trying to be more vulnerable or how to overcome fear of rejection? Sorry, not related to global events. I don't know. Let me give that some thought, and I'll try to maybe do a video or something on that. Thank you, Hunter Sorensen. Do you think the non-physical intervention of Western NATO nations will show other rogue states they can do what they want as long as they have nukes? Yeah. I mean, there's a reason that nuclear proliferation has been such an issue and such a concern for major powers, because they understand that it puts smaller powers that stood no chance against them, it gives them a seat at the big table. Falsum, thank you. Russian incompetence aside, the Ukraine war seems to be showing that certain weapons are becoming a lot less useful. Tanks, for example. Thoughts? Yeah. The tank as a main tool, that's changing, and it's been changing for a long time. On major battlefields, during World War II, a platoon of tanks, that was a big deal. Today, it's a target of opportunity to be destroyed en route to the main objective. So I don't want to say it's the end of the tank, but it's definitely going under an evolution. Thank you, Jurgen Gosh. Get some good rest tonight, brother. Can't wait to see the gardening videos. Yeah, I plan on it. I'm probably going to sleep as soon as I get off this. Thank you, Margarita Villeman. Thank you for being you. With all these questions, you have material for more videos to come. I do, actually. Thanks for the Bother Boy tip. Thank you, Tom Trask. Thank you, Steve6464. An off-subject question. What is your opinion of First Amendment auditors, the really aggressive ones? From what I understand, somebody just did that in the little town near me. And I guess the deputies handled it well, but I'm like going into a government office around here and calling people some of the things that, for from what I understand, were said. I mean, I'm surprised the person didn't get shot, to be honest. I believe in auditing and checking the government's power, but it also has to be done for the purposes of checking the government's power, not for the purposes of inflaming and creating a situation where one didn't necessarily exist. Thank you, Lisa Leitner. I'd already assumed you were past 1 million subs already. Every time I suggest your channel, they're already following you. One day. Thank you, She. Could they keep the yachts, etc., for Ukraine? Yeah, absolutely. Those. Thank you, Kill Switch. Gonna ask, you had a Harlan T-shirt on for one of your videos. How in the world have you heard of my super small town? I grew up on the Tennessee-Kentucky line. So I have been to Harlan. So yeah, it is what it is. Bose Einstein 7. Will DOJ ever make a move on Trump given the proof? I have no clue. I'm super happy to hear that there are grand jury subpoenas going out, though. That at least shows that there is movement. Thank you, Addison Steele. I posted this question in your comment section a few times before. Would you ever be willing to run for president? I believe everyone here would vote, and we do a great job campaigning for you, please. I don't even want to be the president of a homeowners association. I think I am more effective than I would ever be in government office. So I will keep doing this for as long as I possibly can. But I don't see politics actually in my future. Thank you, Icy Saracen. But Russia was taken by Chechen after the war in Chechnya. Would Russia expect similar reprisal from Ukrainian terrorists? Maybe. Some of the actions along the coast, along some of those port cities, I could see that creating groups like that. Thank you, Jeremy Dyer. Are you ever going to reveal who Deep Goat is? No. I will take that to my grave. Thank you, Eric Gonzalez. Started watching you a few months ago, Bo. You're a decent guy. Thanks for your content. Are you on social media where we can follow you? Twitter. I'm very active on Twitter. If you want to reach out to me, that is always the best place. Thank you, Moo Young. Been fortunate, so trying to pay it forward where I can. Also, are you watching any of the new Star Treks? Not yet. I haven't had time. I'm going to have to go back and catch up on a whole bunch of stuff. Basically, the last 30-something days has been research, filming, and my family. I haven't really had any spare time for myself, but that's not really complaining. That's the nature of what I do. Let's see. The Kindle 1995. Would you do a meet and greet? Yeah, at some point. I'm sure that's in the future. We have a channel called, Bo on the Roads. But then the pandemic started. We were supposed to be doing stuff constantly, and then everything we had planned got shut down. So we're waiting for that to kind of for everything to open back up to where we can actually do what we had planned on doing. Keep Thomas Bernecki. It's time for your next unidentified brown cough syrup. Yeah, absolutely. Also, Crimean water supply is down to 7% now. Wow. Let's see. Thank you, Sasha. Could a neutral Ukraine still join the EU? Yes. Yeah. The EU isn't necessarily a defense pact. It doesn't have the same historical confrontational attitude that NATO does with Russia. So I'm fairly certain that EU is in type center Democrats to start supporting no pretext. When will gun rights become part of the left-wing platform? In the U.S., that's a long way off. That is a long way off. I don't know. I don't know. I think that I see that more as a tool to bring right-wing Second Amendment types leftward than to actually to shift politicians' views. Thank you, Alexander Mitchell. Thank you, David K. I just stumbled onto your live chat. Can't stay long, but happy to contribute for all I've learned from what. Thank you. I'm also a supporter on Patreon. You sound under the weather. I definitely am. Thank you, Fredericks. Behavior. Let's see. Thank you, Luna Pon. Followed a couple of years now, and you were you, Daniel P. This is definitely functioning on a two-party system. I would love to see more like you have in Canada, but probably not. Thank you, Anki M. Analyze also the environmental topics following the conflict. I will try to. Thank you. Let's see. Losing. It's like the connections here are dropping. And I concluded it's our private intrigue. Why do you think Russia con? Because they thought they could get away with it. Simple answer. You take it, Bishop. Thoughts on the border issues with the Pacific Northwest? I'm going to have to look into that. Let's see. Thank you, Joseph Murphy. What resources do you recommend on healthy masculinity? I have a bunch scattered throughout my videos. So you have to look. It does. Okay, so it's definitely, yeah, it definitely looks like I'm losing the feed here where I'm at. So I'm gonna have to drop off because I can't catch anything now. Everything is breaking up. So I want to thank everybody. I know that there are questions that I did not get to yet. I will scroll through them and see if there's anything I haven't answered. I'll try to put into a video or something like that. But that definitely looks like the end of the live stream. Otherwise, it's just going to cut out on its own at some point. But IBM 186 failing you. I upped this to a 386 at least a couple years ago. Okay, well, I really appreciate everybody. Really appreciate everybody coming in and hanging out with me. So, but we'll have a full week ahead of us. So, anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.